Geordi LaForge is promoted to lieutenant, chief engineer in a gold uniform. Lieutenant Worf is also in a gold uniform with a new baldric. And Commander Riker grew a beard. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today, we are boldly going into Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2, Episode 1, The Child, written by Jaron Summers and Job Poville and Maurice Hurley. It's one of those things where the first two are a writing team, a writing duo, and Maurice Hurley is the other writer. Directed by Robert Bowman. This was November 21st, 1988. That is a late season premiere. How you doing today, Cirroc?
Yeah, it is kind of late. I'm doing great.
Mm-hmm.
November.
Yeah, November 21st to start a season. Oh, right. Writer strike still. That's why. Oh, and it's John Poville. I think I said Job Poville. John Poville. There's a little typo there. That makes more sense. So, yeah, writer strike. That's why things were so delayed. In fact, boy, we might as well just get into it. In fact, this was originally pitched as a Star Trek Phase 2 script. And Phase 2 was going to be, a lot of people know, this was going to be like the Star Trek series of the 70s, where they're going to pick back up with like Kirk and Spock, you know, and they're going to have, or maybe not Spock. I think it was a different Vulcan that was going to be in Spock's place. And it was just going to be basically continuing on the original series. But then they ended up doing a little bit of
Phase 2.
Yeah,
we're going to call it
Star Trek Phase 2. And then a lot of those stories and, you know, all that stuff kind of went into Star Trek the Animated Series. I believe that's what kind of replaced it. I've heard the stories, but I don't remember why it didn't end up happening. But that was, actually, I'll just read very quickly what Memory Alpha says, because I heard this, so I went and looked it up. It says, the episode is actually a rewrite of an episode with the same title written for Star Trek Phase 2, a series that was scrapped in favor of producing Star Trek The Motion Picture. That's 1979. The Phase 2 script by Jaron Summers and John Poville. Oh, Ilia, she was in the movie, and they were going to have her as a member of the cast. Ilia was impregnated. This episode and Devil's Due were earmarked for possible recycling for Star Trek The Next Generation in anticipation of what became a lengthy Screenwriters Guild strike, which delayed production on Season 2. In the original Phase 2 story, Ilia gave birth to a baby girl, Urska, who posed a similar threat to the Enterprise by having a weakening effect on the ship's hull. In the first draft, though, the alien child considered Uhura and Chekhov as possible host bodies before finally settling on Ilia. The Enterprise soon encounters an alien cylinder that endangered the ship and crew by creating problems that only the child, Urska, had them. Anyway, so that's really interesting. They had Ilia that was going to be part of Star Trek Phase 2, like a main cast member, and she was going to be in the Troy thing. So what they did was, when they did Next Generation, they went back and looked at all of their old Phase 2 scripts and picked some that could have worked as Next Generation scripts. And with the writer strike happening, they're like, well, let's just use these old scripts and just change it to Troy. So anyway, that's the backstory on it.
Yeah, that could explain a little bit of why the
I'm already ready for what you're going to say.
Is so...
I've been waiting all day for this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, because the story is... there's nuggets of good ideas somewhere in there, but the execution for me was not done well at all. And now when you say the writer's strike, it's just like, this is what happens when you don't have writers on deck to flesh out characters, flesh out storylines, and give you good A and B storylines.
You have what I call the quote, the just people. Oh, we'll just use this script for this thing. We'll just replace Ilia. You know, they just say, We'll just do this
Yeah.
for this. And this is what happens when just people make the decisions.
Yeah, it becomes a mismatch in like a jambalaya type of like just throwing everything in there because there were so many things going on with doctor this and doctor that and this and that, and I felt like the story was all over the place. And the thing that mattered the most, it was like Troy just got impregnated by this energy thing, whatever, overnight that's about to be born right now. And the captain's like, well, where are we? You know, it was like, tell me about the containment field in the. I'm like, well, what about this? Like, this is kind
Yeah.
of a big deal, right?
Dude, there are so many. I feel like I thought that since this was this episode, clearly when I watched it, it didn't feel like it was one of the better ones. No offense to anybody that loves this episode. I'm sure there are some defenders of this one, but I actually ended up with more things to talk about in this episode. I'm like, there are like 50 things that I thought were hilarious or hilariously bad. But before we get into all of those things, I kind of start off on the wrong foot here. We need to rewind a little bit because it opens up on Lieutenant Worf. Lieutenant Worf, he got a promotion from junior grade to lieutenant now that he is the chief of security. He went from a red uniform to a gold uniform, and they even changed his baldric, his sash, from like this frilly, tablecloth thing to an actual like metallic, cool looking thing. And when we see that, we're like, that's the Worf I know. That's a little bit better. Plus, Geordi also went from red to gold, and he got promoted to chief engineer. We've added Guinan to the show. Suddenly, we have no Beverly Crusher. Dr. Pulaski is here, Diana Muldaur. Like, Riker has his beard. It's like...
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
I mean...
But with, like, very little explanation to, these new changes.
Yeah.
Well, let's say for Guinan, for example, this is the first time I've seen Guinan, the first time Whoopi Goldberg is on screen in this episode. And she just pops in with like, there was no conversation there between Picard and her. I thought they would go back and forth with something like, like a banter that they might have from knowing each other or something. It was just like, where's the doctor? Over there. Okay. And that was her entrance on camera. Like that was her first scene. And it was kind of a letdown for me. I thought there would be just, when you get your first scene on camera, I thought it would be, okay, this is the moment. She's going to say something slick to Picard. They're going to have some kind of like, thing that they do with each other where they both talk crap about each other or something, like, you still bald or, something like that. Or, I was waiting for the Raz or the chemistry. And it was just kind of the only thing that was popping was the beautiful hat that was designed for her in that opening scene, which becomes one of her trademark looks. But that hat, that purple, the way she looked in the purple, the way the hat sat on her, I was like, wow, she looks gorgeous. And I would like to see more of an entrance dialogue wise for her character.
Yeah. It's just almost like it felt like a reboot. It felt like they said, all right, season 1 had some highs and lows. We ironed out some of the kinks. Let's reboot this thing. We've got a new doctor. We've lost a couple other characters that were beloved. We've added somebody else in that will hopefully be beloved. It's clearly a beloved actress, and Whoopi Goldberg. Diana Muldaur is from the original series as well. She's been in Star Trek before, so they thought, hey, this is a big winner here. They're gonna love her. A lot of changes, and a lot of people, there's that term now in the world, which is when a show grows its beard. When a show grows its beard basically means when it gets good. Sometimes shows need a season or two to get good. That show or that saying comes from Riker. because he grew his beard, and season 2 does get better. I think it gets a lot better in season 3. But that's saying, if you ever hear anybody that says, "Oh, the show really grows its beard in season 2," that comes originally from Riker showing up with a freaking beard and a smirk.
Yeah. I still think that, for a season 2 first episode, I needed a little bit more than this. This felt like maybe they filmed this in this, because we've seen out of order sequences of stuff too in this first season of Next Generation, and it almost felt like this is like the third or fourth episode that they just threw in there as the pilot, because it doesn't set the tone for the season enough for me. It's almost like they just dropped us into the thing in the middle, as opposed to setting the stage. Okay, here's our new 10 forward bar. Here's our new, like introducing those things.
Yeah. For me, I felt like the first 2 or 3 minutes really set up the second season, because it showed the 2 ships looking amazing. It showed Geordi. It showed Worf. It showed their promotions. It showed Riker. They mentioned the new Doctor. All these things, and then so we're like, whoa! Season 2 is really.
I love the opening on the shuttlecraft, because they had that cool
gorgeous.
Shuttle. Yeah,
the shuttle bay with the shuttle, and you're just like, whoa, they're really okay. Here we go. They're really stepping up, and they're just flatlined. I actually, so here's when I pictured you, Cirroc. First of all, throughout this entire episode, I pictured Denise Crosby, our good friend, wonderful human, saying, "What were they thinking?" Because that's definitely, she said that before. Yeah. This was the perfect time to say it. But when I thought of you, let me see if I can find it. There was a specific moment where it just hit me. I was like, this is when Cirroc is looking at the clock. This is when Cirroc is checking for how much time is left. And I can't find it. I'll find it later. But there was a moment, I think there was like 18 minutes left. And I was like, this is definitely when Cirroc just checks and goes like, all right. How much more is left of this?
This episode should have played more as a comedy, and they should have taken the drama out of it. Just went straight comedy, because there were a lot of comedic moments. The whole who's going to tuck Wesley into bed stuff,
that was actually really good. I was surprised when Worf says, "I will take on that responsibility." I'm like, that is the cutest freaking thing I've seen so far in this rewatch.
Yeah, that was special. I kind of like those little moments there. To me, for the comedy, this episode played good for comedy. But the drama, when we review episodes, you've always said this, and this is when I thought of you. Every time we review an episode, there's one thing that you say that's hard for you to believe, and that is somebody falling in love in one episode. Right? You land on a planet, you meet somebody, and all of a sudden they're the love of your life. You can't separate from them.
By scene 3. Yeah.
But right. So that's hard to pull off in any show, because it's just not that believable, for an adult to just have that kind of a response. There's great moments, but it takes time to build like full out soulmate status. But that's what I felt when I thought of you watching this episode. It was Deanna Troy's love for this baby, right? That happened so fast.
I thought the same. Now, however, I thought the same thing you thought. And I was like, come on, she's known this thing for 14 minutes or whatever it is, right? However, I did catch myself afterwards and say, okay, let me counter that argument by thinking, okay, she did carry the child. So there's a chemical, reaction there. There's something biologically, an attachment that happens biologically when a woman carries a baby, even if it's just for 36 hours. So but yeah, when I first saw it, I was like, what are you so like? It's kind of sad, but why are you losing your mind over it?
Yeah, I was the attachment level was like super, super, super too much for me because I just didn't believe that you would be that attached that quickly. I think you might be curious, like, oh well, what's gonna happen? What is it gonna look like? I've always wanted
Mhm.
this, those kinds of things make sense to me. But the level of like, no, don't leave, you can't go. Like I just showed up yesterday.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, what Deanna, look, no offense, but Riker clearly didn't give a shit about your son. He was the worst. We'll get into Riker in a second. But I do want to say that I did find where I thought that you looked at the clock, and it was when the kid hurt his finger and Pulaski healed and goes, that's not so bad. And right then I would or they said, can you tell us why you're here? And the baby goes, no, not yet. And I put in my notes, I was like, this is when Cirroc checked the time. But right here, when he's like, not yet,
Yeah.
Cirroc's like, all right, when then?
Exactly. They try to give me a baby explanation. When he's ready and his communication skills are better, he will let us know what he's here for. And I'm like, you know what? Come on. Come on. This
Yeah,
is
don't try to science this. This makes no sense.
no, don't put the carrot in front of me and try to get me to just keep walking along.
Yeah.
Challenge me intellectually, and that's where I felt like there was a lack of that. It was just so on the nose. There was nothing there that was a mystery to
Yeah,
me.
I agree, actually. Uh, oh, one more thing was Chief O'Brien was back as well,
Yeah,
doing
Chief
what he
O'Brien. Yeah,
does. Trent, not don't mean to
yeah,
miss out on him. So these are all these huge improvements that really led us to think, okay, this is it. We're taking a step up. There are some changes, some good, some bad, mostly good, I would say. I think the only bad one is losing Beverly Crusher. We'd already lost Tasha Yar, but everything else is felt like a step up. Things had improved in every way. Uh, but yeah, the sorry, I know I changed the subject real quick. I want to go back to the subject, but what was it that you said?
no, I want to agree with you about those other issues that I thought were also good,
Oh,
like the you know
right.
O'Brien's.
I just want to add to what you're saying when you said that it didn't stimulate your mind, it didn't challenge you, and so my
Oh yeah,
thought was originally, let me think of one, and I was like, shit, you're right. There was not a moment that really that really kind of made me think. There was a moment that I thought was good when you got all these bro dudes going like, well, we should keep the baby, and Worf's like, no, we should kill him and eat him, or whatever he says. And then
yeah.
Deanna Troi says, hey, I want to keep the baby. And they said, okay, end of discussion. That was great. That was cool. I
Yeah,
feel like that may have been the highlight of the episode, but other than that,
yeah,
I
that
wasn't
was the highlight
curious.
of the episode, and that was the there were moments there they could have taken on serious issues and caused us as the audience to think. I thought abortion was going to be one of them as I was watching this, right? So I thought there was going to be this whole pressure on her to make a decision, and this pressure is coming from the Federation and guys like Worf who are like adamant about their opinion on it, and her making the argument that no, it's I'm the one carrying this child, so I'm the one that's going to make the decision. And it would have been a great place and format to have those kinds of debates, when it comes to that, a woman's right. I thought that
Yeah.
would have been a great forum to kind of explore that, especially in this kind of alien life force type of way, something that is unprecedented for, the court cases that we're used to seeing, right? Where you might have in vitro fertilization and parental rights over adoption and all of these other things we've seen play out in courts. But this would have been a whole nother thing, like, you know, this alien kind of immaculate conception slash, you know, whatever it was.
It's a great setup for a good morality play there. Yeah. For, you know, but they just brushed over it. I mean, it's cool that they made a good point with it, but then they moved on. They're like, we'll make a good point, but that's not what the story's about. And we're like, maybe it could be about that, because there's a lot there that could be explored. But then I couldn't help but notice, I was like, what? Clearly this was a script that was written, you know, for the original series and not for this, because Riker was just kind of like looming and watching and like judging. And he wasn't like, oh my God, we're going to have a baby, or Deanna, I know we've had some problems, but I want to be there for you and the child, or have a conversation. There was like, no, he just kind of like watched and was like, ew, that's how babies are made? Barf. Ugh. Good thing Data's there. Like, he just seemed so like disinterested, like kind of scared and super judgy. What about in the meeting when they're talking about all this scientific stuff? They're like, oh my God, she's pregnant. And then Riker's like, what? She's pregnant. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And then he goes, with who? And they start talking about this scientific thing and that scientific. And he's like, yeah. But who's she? Like, he was so obsessed with finding out how she got pregnant, with who he's going to beat up. And they're just like, yes, Riker, we got to move on. We got to talk about the safety of the ship, the safety of Troy, what this thing is. We got to move. He's like, yeah, but what's his name? It's such a bro.
I thought the same thing. I was like, it turned into like a Jerry Springer moment, like, who's the father? You know, one of those Maury Povich moments, you know? He really got, and here we see Riker again. And this is when I was thinking of Denise, because Denise is always on the fact that Riker is like, you know, jealous of Troy in one breath, but then totally macking all the other girls he can find in another breath. So once again, he reverts back in this, and he's so jealous. It's like, wait a minute, bro. I thought didn't at the end of last season you banged somebody out? I mean, seriously, you might have gotten somebody pregnant last season, so I don't understand why.
Yeah,
you're so upset.
I bet you if they asked him, why'd you grow the beard out, he'd be like, I get more chicks that way. What's the problem?
What? Why else would I?
But you're right.
That whole who's the father, it was so uncomfortable for me, because not only that, he didn't have it in a private moment with her, like, hey, I need to talk to you for a second, you know, like,
totally.
You know, that's the way you would do that. It's like in front of everybody who's your coworkers, like, what's the dude's name, man? And when did you have sex with him? And I need to know. Yeah, like, come on. Seriously, we're at the conference table. Like, this is not the time or place to have that conversation and do your little pouting stuff. You know, call her to the side, talk to her in private, and ask her those questions if you really want to know the answer to those. I just felt like it really turned Jerry Springer on the Enterprise for a second.
You know, it's so funny because when you're talking about Denise there, I'm thinking the same thing. She would have skewered Riker in this episode.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the people in the free-for-all later on today will be tearing him up. I'm especially curious, as always, to know what our good friend Eve England will have to say, because she's never seen any Next Generation episodes either. I think she's going to tear Riker a new one, too. She's going to be like, what's his damn problem?
Okay, so then they explained to him that, you know, it was not another guy that got her pregnant. So, you know, you can take that out of your head. And then instead of saying, okay, I'm going to be there for you, whatever you need, you know, you're somebody that I care deeply for, and I want to be here by your side while you're going through this very sensitive and traumatic period and time, you know. Instead, he just ghosts her, and Data's got to be the one, like, coach, like, doing Lamaze and stuff.
And he's just watching in the hallway, like, not getting too close, not offering support. He could just go there and hold her hand, for God's sake.
He's just with the creepy eyes, like,
or maybe
in the background,
or maybe he's mad because she says, "Oh, it doesn't even giving birth doesn't even hurt," and he's like, "Why not?" Maybe he just looked so judgy,
he
and
looks he
he
looks
was
so
looming the
judgmental.
whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
Was
dude,
he even fully in the room? It was like he was in
no,
the hallway, like in the doorway or something. He wasn't
yeah.
actually fully in the room participating. It was another example of Riker being a kind of a creepy guy sometimes, and he has moments where, look, I understand he's gonna be the love interest and the handsome guy, and get all the ladies. That's cool when they write it that way, but the creep stuff, it doesn't age well.
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's almost like when Bashir is always constantly flirting with some girl, right?
yeah.
It's the creepy flirt. The creepy flirt looks weird.
So this is, and we're going to go to our break in just a second, but this is the perfect example of why you can't just drop a script without professional writers. There's a writer strike going on, because you know what a professional writer would do? Even if they got this script, they'd be like, okay, we can work with this. And they would make changes that would make sense. They didn't just grab the script, plug in different names, because these characters have already kind of been fleshed out, and these things that they're doing don't really fit with how we expect these characters to be. But who knows? I guess they didn't really have a choice. I presume if they have to spit out an episode and they got no writers, they just anyway. Well, let's take a super quick
And
break.
let me just piggyback
Yeah.
on that really quickly. It would have been great because you mentioned in the opening that this was for the Star Trek Phase 2, and they had considered other characters to get
Yeah.
impregnated by this life force. If Worf was selected as the candidate to give birth to this life form, that would have made for an epic episode.
So this is real quick. Yeah, that character Ilia, she was in the original series first movie. She was a Deltan, if I remember correctly. So she's cool. Every once in a while, you'll see people cosplaying her at Star Trek conventions.
Yeah, yeah.
So you'll recognize this. She's a Deltan. This is what she also could have looked like. Anyway,
Wow.
so that was the character that would have carried the baby in the original script. But we'll hop to that break, and we'll be right back, I bet, on the Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Let's knock out some trivioids of the week. I swear, my notes are so long on this one. There were so many things that I was laughing about. So the trivioids. Commander Riker has grown a beard. Geordi LaForge is promoted to lieutenant and chief engineer in a gold uniform. Lieutenant Worf is also in a gold uniform with the new baldric, and Captain Picard thinks things are grand. Data observes a random energy transference. There has been an outbreak of an unclassified plasma plague in the Richellis system. Wesley Crusher is leaving the Enterprise. Psych. Beverly Crusher is the new head of Starfleet Medical. The normal gestation rate for a betazoid is 10 months. Dr. Pulaski examines Data for bruised feelings. Dr. Pulaski teaches Data what an eager beaver is. Ian thanks Miss Gladstone, I should say. Guinan offers Wesley a cup of Maruvian tea, and Wesley Crusher calls Guinan very old. Very old.
Yeah, that's not nice. You're never supposed to reveal a woman's age.
Yeah.
I like Data's questions when he asks Troy, like, I have so many questions. Like, can you read its thoughts? Do you guys communicate with it? I kind of like that curiosity. I thought it was good questions for him to be asking. I actually a little disappointed in the rest of the crew, not just Riker for not being kind of there for her, but the rest of the crew kind of was not as sensitive to it as I would expect them to be. That they're that close to each other, Even in the conference room, it felt like she was sitting there by herself, like as the camera was slowly panning in on her, you could feel like that she's alone. And I didn't feel the sense of like, you know, reaching out to her and asking her and feeling like, tell me how you feel and what's going on in your head right now and what do you think we should do. There was no consultation there. It felt like they were dealing with it like the way they would attack, another enemy ship. Should we go to the north side and fight it this way? No, I think we should attack it with phasers, sir. It's like not like it's a human thing, and somebody's actually their body physiology is being changed, And you talk to somebody like you would treat a medical patient and say, how could I make you feel better? I didn't like the insensitivity.
What also made me laugh was when Troi is walking herself to sick bay in labor and she catches Data and she says, hey, I'm in labor. Can you help me out? And I just thought, hang on a second. Pulaski said she's going to be pregnant for 36 hours. Why not keep her in observation, at least for the last few hours? I thought they know they know it's happening pretty much to the minute.
So keep her in the room. She should be in sick bay
at
already.
Least if you know it's going to be in 36 hours, at least at 33 hours, have her come in, give her a magazine, let her sit there until she goes into labor. Observe her. Maybe her life's in danger. Maybe there are complications. Maybe this baby will come out sooner. I was just like, what do you mean? Doctor's orders, go home, fuck off. And then when you feel like you might be in labor, if you can make it, go ahead and try to make it back to sick bay. Otherwise, I'm busy.
So you're impregnated with an alien life form? Okay, take 2 Advils and go take a nap. And when you feel better, come back in here.
Yeah, just whenever, if you can.
If you can. I mean, if you think about it. No, I thought the same thing. Like, why would they even release her from sick bay? She would be under constant observation if they knew it was that imminent.
And that she's been magically impregnated by a magical being. Why are we not
observing the life signs and doing studies on it? And yes, 100%. I thought the same thing. But I also thought about you when this episode, the doctor says data.
Yes, I wanted to bring that up. That's the best.
I thought, didn't you just say that? I was like, wow, that's so great.
Yeah, that's the best one, because the funniest line is when she says, data, and he's like, data, and she's like, what's the difference? He says, one is my name.
And then I wrote the same thing.
That's it. That's the difference. One is my name, the other
is not.
If you want to know how to pronounce somebody's name, ask them. They will tell you. Don't correct them. Don't be like, if she's like, no, I think it's pronounced data. You'd be like, bro, it's my name. I know.
Rian. No, it's Ryan. No, Rian. What's the difference? Well,
Rian kind of sounds cool.
Yeah, I just thought that was a very funny little scene there between the two of them.
Totally.
Data's response was perfect. But there was also a good moment between Guinan and Wesley.
Yeah,
and that came a little bit later. Like I said, I was disappointed with the first introduction of her, but when she finally did get into her scenes and have the dialogue, I thought she really knocked those scenes out of the park. Showed a lot of compassion and concern for Wesley, and just felt like a counselor type, person.
Right. But there are two things to that. One is she showed her value to the show. She, this script, this moment, this scene allowed for the character to be justified in being added to the cast. Because if she was just the bartender with just a few lines, rectagino, but nothing that moves the story along, it's a wasted character and it's a wasted, moment. But what they did was they introduced her in a way that we can see her value and we understand why she has been added and what value she adds to the story. Now, that being said, they made her basically like a counselor. And we are number one, we already have Counselor Troi, but number two, there are already very few episodes in which a counselor was needed. So she's trying to fight and claw for these little morsels of storylines. And now she has to split it with a second person. And this makes me think that I wish that they had, deviated their special abilities a little bit more, because Guinan, we get it. We call her a counselor, but really what she is, she's a listener, she's a friend, she's a sage, she's wise, but still that definitely covers a lot of the ground that Counselor Troy would have. And so I wish that they had given Troy more of a Starfleet type of role where she's leading diplomatic missions, she's counseling the captain more, so Guinan helps more with the interpersonal stuff, and Troy helps more with the Federation Starfleet, strategizing
official
stuff.
Business.
Yep.
Right. I agree with that, because it does seem unfair for Troy to undercut her counselor, abilities. And yeah, I mean, I definitely got counselor vibe from Whoopi Goldberg's character, because the way she talks, the way she listens too. It's not just that, but and they almost do the same thing, which is sense somebody's right. Troy is like, I sense your weakness, I sense you're fearful, I sense this, and Guinan is sensing. She's like, I sense you don't know how to make a decision. I sense that you have trepidation about leaving this ship. So she has the same sensing abilities. So I just feel you're right. It would have been nice to kind of make a distinction there between one person as a job, as personnel, as far as Starfleet, this is what I'm here to do, and the other person just like, I do this because I connect with people. I'm a bartender, and I get underneath people's emotional guards.
What's funny is when you were saying that, I was picturing that they should have written in a scene a few episodes from now, where Troy kind of feels like Guinan's encroaching on her turf, but they're both like super passive aggressive in their subtext. Where like Troy says, I sense you believe you have a lot of value as a listener. And then, Guinan's like, well, I sense that, you might be a little jealous, and then Troy's like, well, I sense that maybe you think you're more valuable than you are. And then, they just keep like sensing things. And then then they start fighting, oh, well, I sense that maybe you can't handle me.
I sense you're jealous because Riker keeps coming here to see me.
Oh,
boom, boom, boom. Yeah. It definitely could have been a back and forth sensing war. The census, that would be the name of the episode.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to talk a little bit about the sometimes Star Trek really just, I don't know, when I hear certain words, it makes me think of the current events that we're living through, specifically when we just went through this whole pandemic and COVID-19
vaccine.
And one of the B storylines in this episode was virus containment and, strains of mutating virus and, genetic engineered viruses. And I'm like, well, geez, how long has this been going on? And somebody put a handle on this, because how many episodes does it need to be in before we figure out this?
Yeah, we're like that old doctor guy. I forgot his name, but he needs to be wearing a mask. I do know that.
At the very least. Yeah. But yeah, just the idea that when, Star Trek covering a subject matter that has become, part of all of our, daily experience and all of our lives. So it's something that I wouldn't normally pick up on, strains of mutating viruses, right? That wouldn't be something that jumps out at me and I say, oh yeah, that makes sense, but now having gone through what we've gone through, it's like those keywords kind of pop out to me now. And I'm like, whoa, wait, did they just say what I've already heard? So
absolutely.
That's one of the things I give Star Trek a lot of credit for, is using the the verbiage, the language that eventually becomes part of the lexicon of popular culture.
Absolutely. Because, back in 1988, right before Thanksgiving, November 21st, 1988, when they said, virus, mutation, vaccine, people are just kind of like, okay, whatever. I mean, they got those words, but it didn't trigger like an emotional response. Like we all kind of a little bit shudder when somebody says like, oh, there's a virus mutating, we need a vaccine. We're like, oh, I just went through that. That sounds, don't remind me. It's kind of like when I see like masks on the ground in a parking lot. I remember I'm already remembering the days where like you wore it like 24/7, and now we're just seeing them. People just toss them in the parking lot. But yeah, it kind of makes me shudder a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And going back to also the absence of different characters, because this is something for the audience out there that may want to know this little fun fact. We've seen throughout the first season and throughout other shows that we watch where characters kind of come and go. We say, hey, where's Marina Sirtis this episode? We haven't seen her. Or where's O'Brien? Or where's Beverly Crusher? And I wanted to give a possible explanation for some of that for the listeners out there. When an actor books a series regular role, during the process of negotiation, it is possible to be in all shows produced, which means if they do 26 episodes that year, you will get paid for and appear in all shows produced. Now, if they don't use you in that episode, you still get paid for an all-show production.
It's called the Jake Sisko rule.
No, it's not. No, I wasn't on the Jake Sisko rule, but
damn.
I'm just giving a little background. And so there are also in those kinds of circumstances when you're starting your first or second season on a show and they're not sure they want to commit this amount of budget to your character because they don't want they don't know what it's going to look like. They'll do sometimes 10 out of 13, a 10 out of 13 scale, which means if they do 26 episodes, you do 10 out of 13. That's going to be 20 out of the 26 episodes that you will get paid for, and they will try to put you in. Not necessarily meaning they will put you in all 20, but you will get paid for 20 episodes. And so this scale is a moving scale. Sometimes it's 6 out of 13. And so on and so forth. And so for that reason, and I'm not trying to name anybody's contract specifically because I obviously don't know what Beverly Crusher's contract says or Marina Sirtis' contract, but I am saying that as a possible reason for why certain characters are not always in every episode is because perhaps contractually they are not obligated to be in every episode, and so you might not see them 3 out of 10 episodes.
On that note, I did notice a little bit of a discrepancy in the post opening theme credits. It said special appearance by Diana Muldaur. That's special appearance for Pulaski. And for Whoopi Goldberg and Guinan, it was special guest star. So special appearance and special guest star. And I'm like, what's the difference? And it's usually just part of the contract where they're like, okay, we'll pay you this much and we'll give you X credit, and it was just weird to see two different things. I guess I should have checked also what Dr. What was his name? Hester Delt. I should have checked what they said for Hester Delt. I wonder if it was one of those two or if it was a third thing. I think it was, like special guest star. Yeah, maybe star too, or special guest appearance or something like that.
Okay, so from my recollection, when you have a guest star or special guest star name attached to your credit, that means your pay scale is as a maximum pay scale
Right.
under SAG rules for being on a show. And those scales can go down, relative to that. So these are things your agents are always negotiating. So I wasn't in every episode of Deep Space Nine, but yet my name ran in the opening credits of every episode,
Starring. Yep.
and that was uh, something negotiated by my agents
By a good
prior to
agent.
signing, by a very good agent. So I'm just explaining for the benefit of the audience that doesn't know, maybe, that these are the kinds of things that are negotiated. Oh, the credit, run my client's credits name every episode, even if they're not in every episode,
Mm-hmm.
or they want guest star credits or special guest star credits um, for pay scale reasons.
And that's why
So
you pay
yes,
these people a percentage, is because they're there fighting for you.
yes,
Because actors don't want to make it messy. They want to book the role. They don't want to sit there and be like, have to fight for every penny and fight for, a credit that shows the respect that they deserve and this and that. That's what you've got. An agent, that's their job. They're going to fight those ugly little battles. You worry about kicking ass as an actor. And that's one of the things that are valuable about them, for sure.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
speaking of which, speaking of value, we got a couple minutes left. So who is the home run of the day?
Yeah, shout out to Kerry Schwinn for the home run.
That's right.
Paul, the home run of the day. I'm going to tell you who I give the home run of the day to this particular episode, and this may be a new one for me, but I'm going to give it to the director, Rob Bowman.
Nice.
And the reason I'm going to give it to Rob Bowman is because he fabricated a shot in this episode that I think deserves a lot of credit.
Oh,
And
which one?
that is the shot that was when Counselor Troy was in the bed and that light creeped up through the sheets, and the way the sheets were being manipulated and compressed, the way the light was traveling. I thought that was an excellent shot.
Good point.
And I'm sure requires some kind of choreography and staging for whatever kind of fiber optic they ran or whatever lighting device rig that they used, however they inflated and deflated the dress or the bed sheet. So all of those things I thought were great for a director's point of view. It was a small shot, but I loved it, and I thought it was an
Mm-hmm.
A+.
Smart. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah. So for me, I got to give two home runs today, and it's to Diana Muldaur and Whoopi Goldberg for slightly different reasons. One is, hey, Dr. Pulaski, it is not easy to go in and replace a fan favorite and not be hated for it. So she had some big shoes to fill. She had a tough role to fill. And, she went out there guns blazing and she did it. Whoopi Goldberg, on the other hand, she was also new to this show, but her difficulty was something different. She had to create a new role, a different role. She wasn't filling shoes. She was trailblazing her own, which is also, a difficult situation to be in, where people might be like, wait, what? Don't we already have a counsel? I'm sure there were some people that were confused by it. So she went out there very convincingly and showed us why she is a valuable member to this crew and to this cast.
Yeah.
Let's give. Oh, sorry. We're going to.
Oh,
say
by the
something?
way, I was going to say Rob Bowman also did another shot in this episode, which is why I gave him that home run. It was the shot where Wesley is standing looking out at the planets, and he's
Beautiful.
coming in from the exterior of the ship and brings us inside. I thought that was another great shot as well. So that's why I give Rob Bowman the home run for me.
Absolutely. 1988 too. That's he's pushing the envelope there. He's coming up with new stuff. So speaking of pushing the envelope, nobody pushes the envelope more than Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill, who has a new player on his favorite Grizzlies team, Bill Victor Arucan.
Arucan!
Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Dieckmann on a post, Joe Balsarotti, Mike Goo, I missed Anil O. Polat. I'm so sorry, Anil. Anil O. Polat, Mike Goo, Dequeue, Neal.
Saka.
That's the one. Justine Norton-Kertson, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Life from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach-Heid, Julie Manasfi, Nikki T, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. All right, everybody, stick around. We've got the free-for-all. They're banging on the door. They want to yell about Riker. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Well, hello, everybody. This is the seventh rule free-for-all, of course. Cirroc Lofton is here leading the charge, of course.
Hello.
Look who has joined us. It's Melissa Longo in
hi.
An amazing seventh rule shirt. Look at that.
Do-do-do-do.
And a theme song. Faith Howell is here on the Enterprise D, of course. Dr. Susan V. Gruner has returned from her Eastern Mediterranean. I see a shirt there too, actually.
You do?
Oh,
that's so cool.
Awesome. Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I love that shirt.
Gorgeous color too.
Yeah. Looks great on you.
Yep. I bet it looks great on Jason Okun too, who's also here. We've got Eve England, guess what, out in Wales. She's got an OG seventh rule shirt, as does Allison Leach-Heid.
Yeah.
She got the Ferengi eyes. Nikki T is hanging out with us for the first time, so we'll be on our best behavior. Mai is live in Tokyo, which will maybe the behavior will get back to rowdy. Carrie Schwent is here showing off her favorite baseball team as usual. Chris McGee, the Dark Lord, is showing off a cool Walking Art Made by Melissa t-shirt that you can get at theintrovertedrepublic.com. Goldu Scott Jensen is still in the afterglow of the NHL playoffs. And Mr. Matt Boardman has his Stem Bolt and Chill shirt and a cool Under Armour hat. All right, first things first. It's going to get grim. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
IMDb. Let's see, what was good in this episode?
The script.
Don't look it up now.
The beers.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with a 6.
Baby, 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 baby. 9-6, 8-6. What do you mean?
No, just a straight 6. Straight 6 o'clock.
Nice
6 p.m.
Now, does anybody else have a guess that doesn't already know?
I think it's a bit higher at 6.8. There was some good stuff in here. Some good stuff.
5.7.
I was going to say 5.5.
Oh man,
5.7, 5.5.
it's getting grim.
Guys are ruthless. You guys, this is bad news when Eve is given the highest score. Come on. But you guys are right. It is a 5.8. You nailed it.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, the fans were not kind.
Nope. Also, did anybody catch the non-appearance mentions? I actually got 2.
Oh.
Well, Beverly Crusher, obviously.
Yeah.
yeah.
Loxana.
And her husband. Or
I did not hear the
Yeah,
Loxana. I heard her father, but I didn't hear Loxana. Was there Loxana too?
Yeah, there was.
She said, ask my mother. Yeah.
Oh.
Excellent. Good stuff. All right. Boy, that was fun. It's going to be even more fun now. Melissa Longo, can you please get us on the right track here?
Yes. I will say that this episode made me pretty uncomfortable, which is why I think the score is pretty low. And I will save all of the reasons why for things left unsaid. The things that I did like about this episode, however, were I like that we got introduced to Guinan in this episode. She has always been a favorite character of mine, and this episode showed why. Planted the seeds of why she is one of my favorite characters. I also really liked Wesley in this episode. He feels like he's matured a bit since the first season, and I loved his uniform and the way he wore it. They fit it to him very nicely. It looked great. So he felt like he actually belonged on the bridge in this episode rather than previous episodes. So it felt like he had earned that place. And I miss Beverly a lot, but that doesn't mean I'm not fascinated by the introduction of Dr. Pulaski, because she is definitely a different type of character, an interesting character. And I think Diana Muldaur, is that how you say her name? Does it pretty well. She plays it pretty convincingly. And I like that. To me, she feels like an example of what human beings are in the future. They feel like they have this sense of themselves as being more evolved than maybe they actually are. And there's something very human about her in her closed-mindedness,
Yeah, good points. Thank you very much, Melissa Longo. Your thoughts, Faith Howell?
So this episode kind of hit me sideways this week. I was not expecting, because I remember, the general synopsis of the episode, but I haven't watched it since having kids. So definitely that whole arc, and I'll save most of that for left unsaid, but that definitely hit me sideways this week. And also, as some of you guys know, I am changing jobs over the summer. And so watching Wesley work through whether he wanted to basically change his whole living situation really made me think this week as I was packing my classroom and saying goodbye to people I've been working with for upwards of 6 years. I really kind of connected with that. I'm going the opposite direction of the way Wesley went, which I thought was interesting. And I'm kind of like, after the last scene, the way they they were talking down to him in that scene. So except for that scene, I like that arc, but I think that we could have done that last bit a little bit differently. But I thought it was interesting. Like, Worf's gonna tuck him in. Mr. Three-Way Worf is gonna tuck him in.
He was really cool with it too.
Yeah.
So so I that was interesting, and I definitely really liked Guinan's introduction, and I can't wait to see more from her.
Mm-hmm. And also,
you
when
will go to sleep.
Yeah, and then Troy said, "Oh, he'll sleep real well then." Like, really? That's the comforting.
This is kind of creepy. This is definitely humor.
Yeah.
He's the warm milk. I don't know.
Listen, it's those Klingon bedtime stories.
No stranger to Klingon bedtime stories, of course, is Allison Leach-Heid, who's hanging out here with us. Allison, what did you think of this episode? Did you enjoy it? Favorite episode so far?
Not my favorite episode so far, but I did enjoy it more than I thought I would. Yes, after having children, watching this episode is very different. The whole scene where they're mansplaining her pregnancy in the briefing room was hard to witness as someone who's done that. But I really love that she just went, no, this is what I want. This is what we're doing. And you all deal with it. Like, no. So I really like that she got that. And I had to put it in perspective of this is in the 80s. Like that was actually kind of liberal where it doesn't feel that way now. So I guess yay for that, but it was still really hard to watch. What I like about this episode is, of course, getting to meet Guinan. That scene with her and Wesley is wonderful. You're completely right, Faith. It's fabulous. I love that. Just, we all need someone to say sometime, like, you know what, you get to do what you want. It's okay. You don't have to do what's expected of you. So we all need that reminder. I do. So it was nice to have it from a show that I grew up with. And I also really liked when Troy stood up for Data with Pulaski. Like, no, Data is my friend. Like, he can be here for me. He's not a cold hand in technology. So I like that they're starting to show that friendship as well, because that's another one of my favorites on the show.
Oh, that's really cool. Thanks very much, Allison. Allison is so quick with the mute. She muted herself before so fast.
I have an entire family and 2 dogs in the house. It's loud out there. So
But we didn't hear it. You're nailing it. Thank you very much, Allison. Eve England out in Wales is here. She is ready to skewer Commander Riker.
I'm going to park Commander Riker because he was just ridiculous in this episode. But anyway, I mean, in general terms, I felt that this episode was much more aligned to how I kind of imagined TNG was going to be like from the start. So I felt it felt distinctly more modern than season 1 from the get-go. So I thought, so for me, when I was first watching it, I was like, oh, this feels like it's going to be better just from the way that the first couple of scenes were sort of presented. And obviously then they, threw the spanner in the work, and I was absolutely, again, livid by the fact that Beverly'd gone. And I honestly thought you guys were just winding me up a few episodes ago where you said something about her going. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I was like, what the fuck? They've now lost 2 of their main female characters by season 2. I was like, this is just, and I almost kind of think, right, I'm not going to watch this. This is ridiculous. And then I thought, okay, actually, then we had this introduction to Dr. Pulaski, and I just was blown away by her. I thought she was fantastic. I just thought she just felt like such a modern character. You could imagine her being in any other TV show today. So I'm wondering whether maybe this, because I really liked her, and I'm suspecting that maybe people didn't like her, and people, I don't know. So I'm guessing maybe that's why this got some low scores as well. But from my perspective, I just thought she was fantastic. I particularly loved how she stood up and put Picard right in his place when he was hell-bent on giving her a dressing down in front of a whole bar full of people after basically they were all slagging her off on the bridge because she hadn't reported in or something. So all of a sudden, I think, you had this perception that they didn't, they weren't impressed with this person. But then I was like, actually, she was doing her job and she was giving this support to Deanna. And then I thought, actually, I then thought the introduction of 10 Forward was fantastic. And I thought, okay, brilliant. Now this suggests that they're going to start looking at characters and interactions between characters, because why else would you have a bar? So again, although we didn't see a huge amount of that, I was like, okay, I think that's maybe where this season is going to go. So that gave me some positive vibes there. I mean, as we'll probably come on to later, again, the storyline with Troy was just uncomfortable and appalling. There was just no compassion there. Through all the trauma, she was alone from right at the start, right until the end. No one seemed to, I thought the way that they wrote that was just very strange. But what I thought from Troy's perspective, I mean, I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear from Marina on this, but I just thought, she must have felt quite threatened then by Guinan, because they basically brought in another counselor to the ship who basically gave more counseling advice in one episode than Captain Obvious gave us for a whole season. I was like, was just
Counselor obvious.
yeah. I mean, Michael Bynum was brilliant, and those interactions with Wesley, as you've all said so far, that was so nuanced compared to what we have seen so far. So taking it all as a whole, which is why I think I gave it a slightly higher score, because although it had the Troy storyline was really poor, all of those little snippets of other aspects gave me the sense that this is now going in that direction I was probably looking for in season 1. So that was a positive watch for me.
All right. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Eve, for using terms like slagging off and winding up.
Yes.
Hello, Jason Okun. How are you today? Thanks for playing with us. What do you think of this episode?
Well, I'll stick with the good stuff. I'll save some of the other stuff for later. I think generally speaking, first of all, I mean, you need to understand where this episode comes from and why it is the way it is. And we'll talk about the actual storyline a little bit later. But I think overall, I think it may be one of the better looking episodes so far of The Next Generation. Some of it has to do with the fact that they've refurbished the sets a little bit. The bridge looked more spiffy. Obviously, they replaced the captain's chair, and a lot of the bridge got refurbished. The carpets are new and not as ripped. So that's good. Also, they learned to light the bridge a little bit better in the sets, and the sound was a hell of a lot better too. And I think, the fact that Rob Bowman was directing, I think, if you look at the sort of summary of the first season and you look at what people thought were the better episodes, a lot of them were directed by Rob Bowman. He kind of held it all together. He used quite a bit of interesting stuff here. I mean, he went low on a lot of these shots. He had the camera moving. There's one shot where it starts at the horseshoe, goes around the horseshoe, and sort of circles around. The camera pans around right to the command center, instead of just going straight to them and just and just kind of pushing in on them. There's a shot of, I think it was Picard sitting in the captain's chair, maybe Riker, and then Data's sitting at the science station, and they show him through the horseshoe, which is great. I mean, they haven't done that before. There are a lot of those shots. I mean, he used I guess he used the POV fisheye lens for this thing traveling through the ship. I mean, a lot of these things were new and fresh, and they were nice to look at because, frankly, the story was empty, but it was kind of a good-looking empty story. And obviously, we talked about the introduction of Diana Muldaur, who by that time was certainly a Star Trek veteran, and obviously, she was brought in basically to be, I guess, the Next Generation's Bones. That kind of character. I mean, it succeeds to a degree, and I do like her as a character. I mean, there were, I suppose issues behind the scenes with her sort of being brought in, and I don't want to go into that. But in terms of the character itself, I've always liked her. It's certainly not kind of a slight to the Dr. Crusher character, but it's a different type of vibe, and maybe she's Next Generation's Miles O'Brien, sort of a real sort of life kind of character. And then obviously, the introduction of Whoopi. I mean, she has guidance sort of from the get-go. And you have to bring your game when you're in the scene with her. And I think, for all the episodes she was in, she may have broken character for just 1 second in one of these episodes. We'll get to it. It's in the second season, when she basically tells Wesley to shut up. It sounds more like Whoopi. But other than that, I mean, you sort of see the gravitas she brings. I mean, if you look, I mean, she was fairly young when she did this, but she's supposed to be sort of this wise character, and she pulls it off marvelously. So from that point of view, it was nice to see. It did look different than the first season in many different ways. Again, the story is what it is, for the reasons that it is. But other than that, it was nice to look at compared to what we've seen over the course of the first season.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say there's no way we're going to do that second segment without us asking you, Jason, what those stories were with Diana behind the scenes, because definitely my ears perked up. However, Susan V. Gruner, who we all love behind the scenes, is here, and Faith agrees. And we would love to hear what you thought about this episode.
Well, I like this episode a lot. And I think that Marina did a good job of acting. I did read what it says on IMDb, and I completely disagree. It didn't make me uncomfortable at all. I thought this is sci-fi, and this is a a being that wanted to experience life as a human, and I didn't get a rape vibe or anything like that. Since Deanna is who she is, if it was something bad, she would have said something, being empath or whatever you want to call it. But I thought it was great. And I love the new doctor. She's is amazing. I love that she stands up to Picard. There are some things, I wanted to smack Riker a couple times. We'll talk about that later. I wanted to smack Worf a couple times. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, there's some little funky moments in here that I didn't quite understand. But I guess there is still a writer's strike going on or something. And but in general, I would give it more like an 8.5 or something like that if I had to rate it. And I'll save the rest for what's left unsaid.
Boy, Jason really raised an eyebrow when you said 8.5. I'll tell you that much. Just one eyebrow went up.
Yeah, I feel like we're starting to get to know the characters a little bit better, and I like that. I think that's important. It's stuff that we don't like about other iterations of Star Trek is the lack of character development. At least we're starting to get some here, even if it's a little on the wacky side at times.
That's great stuff. Thanks very much, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, who knows a little something about doctors, by the way. We've got a newcomer here. Nikki T is hanging out with us. Nikki, have you watched this episode recently? If so, what'd you think of it? Or do you remember it from past viewings?
Yes and yes. I rewatched it, and my memory was I didn't like it, but I didn't remember it being the season 2 premiere, which like totally is shocking to me because rewatching it, I was like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. But sorry, people, I hate this episode. It's like the Enterprise episode where Trip gets pregnant from this consensual sex beads. It's like that it just really creeps me out that it's okay for a curious alien to sneak into your bedroom at night and ... and then you're pregnant, and then it's just so weird. And I think that everybody reacting somewhat cold is not supportive, but also I'm not surprised because like she's acting like it's normal and she wants to keep this kid, but nobody's talking about how the consent issue. So it just like, I don't know, it made me very, very, very uncomfortable. And yeah, that's all I'll say about that for now. But I love Pulaski. I was really, really looking forward to this episode for her because I love her. She's like Bones. She's like salty, like the doctor from the original series. And I love Bones. He's like my favorite character. And I mean, well, he was when I was a kid. I don't know. I mean, it changes all the time, but that surly Dr. Pulaski, I love it. I love and hate that she calls Data. It's funny and it's mean and it's ignorant and it's insensitive, but it's also funny. And so, but so I love that she just like told Picard to like sit down. I gotta tell you something in 10 forward when he's like all bossy. What are you doing in here? And also Picard just jumping to conclusions like he doesn't know what she's doing in there. He just comes in there like she's getting drunk on the job the first day. Like, really, would she really be doing that? She jumped through probably a million hoops to get on the Enterprise. She would not be spending her first day in 10 forward drinking. But anyways, I love that there was a like little B story with Wesley because I love Wesley and a lot of people I grew up with hated Wesley. I grew up with The Next Generation. It was on when I was in elementary school and high school. So we had it on VHS and anyways, yes, I miss Dr. Crusher, but I just know that Pulaski's coming, so it's like a comfort too. So okay, I guess that's all I'll say for now. Oh, one last thing is like I was so scared that I was gonna be like, I hate this episode, and everybody was gonna be like, this episode's awesome. So I had to cheat and look at the rating. And then I was like, whew, okay, I'm not crazy. I am crazy, but not about this. Okay.
Well, you never know. Great stuff. You never know. The next few people might say this is the best episode they've ever seen. So thank you, Nikki T. Starting with my Live in Tokyo. She's going to be raving about it.
Absolutely 10 out of 10. Now, I mean, look, you've got this alien who's a little blip of light that flies around and can pierce the hull and then float above people and hide in shafts and so forth. So what was with the traditional approach to Deanna? He was really pervy there, I thought, right up under the covers and up the leg. And I was like, damn, that was okay. Pulaski reminded me a little bit, her one aspect of her reminded me of my daughter. My daughter grew up here in Japan and speaks English natively, but a lot of the English words she knows are from reading. And so when she read them, she'd pronounce them according to how they probably should have been pronounced. And then she says them to me sometimes in conversation. I crack up because they're just hilarious. So when Dr. Pulaski said the gestation period, I was like, what the? Nah, come on. You got to learn how to pronounce things better than that. That's not okay. When she was talking, she was at the screen in the ready room when in that really comfortable scene where Riker was really nice to Deanna. It was really comforting to see 10 forward. I loved that. Really comforting to see Guinan. Love that. Deanna, get your kid a haircut. Seriously, the Bobby Brady look is out. The thing is, though, this in behind me here, when Guinan was just finishing up her talk with Wesley in 10 forward, and she was encouraging him to focus on himself instead of doing something for everybody else all the time. And she was saying, she was talking about his future, trying to hint at him looking towards his own future. And then this came on, and I thought at first, okay, well, that's just them going to warp, but they were already at warp. And nobody was hitting the gas to go to a higher level of warp. And there were some red and blues in it before it first came on. Was it like her way of like mind projecting to him, remember, you're a traveler, this is where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do? Well, I wasn't sure what this effect was all about, but it felt like she was showing him a glimpse of his future. And I wondered if any of you guys had any thoughts on that. So I'll pass the baton there.
Interesting. I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, we all noticed that.
I noticed that too. I thought they were going to warp, actually. So I didn't think much more of it then. But then, yeah, they didn't really announce that they're heading in warper.
Yeah. And Guinan is magical to our perception. Yeah. Great stuff. Thanks very much, my Terry Schwent. What's up, Crafty Bear? What do you think of this one?
Good. I'm gonna be relying on my notes a bit more than usual. I'm on Eve's side of the pond tonight. Spent the last fun. 24 hours traveling and doing the hop on, hop off thing. So I'll try not to ramble too much. But there's a lot of things that I do like about the episode. I love Troy's new hair. That horrible top knot thing is gone. We will never see it again. I love the curly look for her. It really suits her. Wes's new uniform is great. It does look fantastic on him. He looks almost like an adult in this episode for the first time. Like he's starting to look grown up. The hair actually works pretty good for him too. Worf's new baldric sash thing is 10 times better than that gold lame woven thing. I like the silver. The silver looks a lot better with the gold uniform. And I love how Data was just so fascinated with what was going on with Deanna and the birth. He just asking a ton of questions. He thought it was like the coolest thing he'd ever witnessed. And Dr. Pulaski, you leave Data alone. Do not to be dismissed. She said whatever and rolled her eyes twice. She didn't get off on the best foot with me in this episode. I get used to her, but she's not my favorite. There's salty, and then there's dumping the entire container of salt in the dish. But as I said, I'm tired and rambling. But I paused later in the episode when Pulaski and the mustache dude were looking at the specimen, and if you pause on the right screen, the names of the scientists. Where is it? I had him. Rob Bowman, Maurice Hurley, Jaron Summers, and John Pavel, all like the writers, and the second two were the writers of the original script, and then you've got Rob Bowman and Maurice Hurley. I thought that was really kind of cool. One thing I do not like before I get to my limerick is Riker's beard. Anybody who's heard me talk about facial hair before knows I do not like beards. I vastly prefer a clean shaven look, but again, that is just my own personal preference. But sorry about the rambling. One other thing before the limerick. I'm very glad I am not a Betazoid, because 9 months is bloody long enough. And my son was even six days after that. Another full month. No. Okay, so for the limerick this time, I decided that it would be coming from Picard as a welcome aboard to the Doctor. Welcome aboard this crazy ship of mine. You're in for a jolly good time. Beverly got promoted. Wes stays because he's devoted. Guinan gives drinks and advice with a smile. And you can tell my current location kind of slipped in there with the jolly good.
Totally. That was bloody good. Thanks very much, Carrie Schwent. Chris McGee is here feeling attacked, but he's definitely not the Dark Lord. What's up, Chris McGee? What'd you think of this one?
Well. So finally, season 2. So many changes in this one. As has been already mentioned, the new baldric for Worf, new bridge furniture, as a matter of fact. No more, wood grain flip, panel open on the captain's chair. It's much more robust. Even the ops and con chairs are much better. No more of the low riders. So all the furniture has been upgraded. A new gold uniform and promotion for Geordi to chief engineer. New beard for Riker. A new doctor, of course. Everyone has already mentioned that. Which, interestingly, she's listed as a special appearance by in the credits. So I guess maybe this is her only episode. A new location, of course, 10 Forward. A new bartender to tend that bar, Guinan. And even Colomina's role starts to get it a little bit bigger in this season. Spoilers, I guess. I don't know.
He also went from red to gold. He also went from red to gold as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. So I don't know if if he got promoted or what in between, but anyway, Diana Muldaur. So a lot of people have opinions about Diana, as we've already seen here so far. And like Eve, a lot of people back in the day just did not like her, thus the low IMDb score. For me personally, I mean, she was in a couple of original series episodes that's already been mentioned too. But I think she brings a great warmth and charm and I guess excellent bedside manner to the role of the Doctor on the ship. I like her a lot better for that, at least. I do love Dr. Crusher, but I also love Dr. Pulaski for, I guess, different reasons. So why not both? Anyway, did anyone else think that when Ian said, as I guess 3-year-old-ish child, he said, "Please don't worry, everything is okay." Given the situation and his age, both apparent and actual, it sounded incredibly ominous. I also remember an interview with Marina Sirtis regarding this episode when she said that believe, if I'm remembering correctly, she thought she was eventually going to be written out of the show because towards the end of the first season, she was getting less and less to do. So she started feeling like Denise Crosby, and she thought they're just going to write me out of the show. I'm going to have to start finding a new job or something. And then she got the script for this very first episode where she's smack dab in the middle of it all. So she said, "Oh, I guess my job's secure." So, lastly, the memorable quote of the episode, someone already mentioned it in chat, was Data's response to Dr. Pulaski when she mispronounces his name as Data and then says, "What's the difference?" And of course, his response is, "One is my name, the other is not," which I thought was a wonderful mic drop moment for anyone who has ever had their name mispronounced. Right, Cirroc and Melissa?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's happened so much that I just give people a pass.
I
But
don't
I know what you mean.
When you correct them and they still get it wrong, that's when it's annoying. I mean, one is my name and one is not. So, and if you've been told a different, how it's supposed to sound, then you should respect that, because one is my name and one is not.
And if you guys want to know Melissa's tell, if somebody says her name incorrectly the second time, she still keeps the smile, but her eyes kind of start to squint. she gets a little darker. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad that they updated the algorithm on these phones when you text people, because I used to have to text my names to somebody, and every time I text my name, it would say citrus. And so I would say, "Hey, what's up? It's citrus.
Or citric.
Nice to meet you."
Too. I've gotten citric when I type your name too.
Yeah, but now it's updated to the point where it knows it's me, and so it gives me my name as an option. But before the algorithm updated, I was citrus to everybody. So one is my name, the other is not.
Yeah.
Juicy. Yeah. Mr. Matt Boardman is also here. What's up with you, Matt? Did you enjoy this episode as much as the rest of us?
I'm still chuckling over citrus. I think we need a T-shirt with some citrus fruit on it for the seventh rule now. I like this episode in the sense that it's like one of the things I love about Next Generation is you can see the progression. You see how the show progresses with each season, from the sets, from how they write the characters to how they like things. And I don't know, I'm a nerd and I like that kind of stuff. I always think it's fun to see the improvements that they make in the overall quality of the show as the years go on, because obviously Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise, they all benefited from these advancements that they made in Next Gen. So I mean, like it has been mentioned, I think it's cool that we get to see Geordi become the engineer. We see Worf, we see the beginning of Riker's beard, even though right now it's a little kind of iffy with his hairstyle. I don't know, it just doesn't quite sit with me. But I think for me, the child side of this story is not my favorite part of it, because I do think there are some parts of it that are a little clunky, especially in the way that you have all these guys over here talking about this future of this child, and none of them are talking to or with Troy about it. And that was kind of, that to me, watching it this time through, and it's just, that was really awkward to me. But what I do love the most about this episode is we get more of that journey of Wesley Crusher, which I think is one of my favorites in Next Gen is that. And so I love that we get to see 10 Forward for the first time. I love that we get Guinan, and and I think that the moment in which Wesley is making a choice, I think that's relatable to many of us in our life, where we've been faced with a decision where we have a drastic change and we have to weigh out those things, and who doesn't go and talk to people to get their advice. So those are some of the highlights of this episode for me. And yeah, those are my thoughts there.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody's friend, Mr. Matt Boardman. We also have Gull du Scott Jensen here. Finally, he has returned. What's up, Scott? What'd you think of this one?
I could echo what a lot of people have said about the my skin crawling a few times in this episode. But the thing is that I feel like the intro to it with this swelling music was so theatrical in the first scene, and then into the ship being busy and everything going on and blah, 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 blah. Then you get into, Riker's in there giving orders on the bridge. And then he walks into the captain's ready room and you get hit with that hat trick of his beard and a new doctor. And, oh, by the way, congratulations. And it was just bam, bam, bam. And I felt like it was just rapid fire. And I was going, oh, this is great. This is really, feeling like it's starting up this new season really well and everything. And then we get this really weird scene in the turbo lift with Wes and Captain Picard that was just excruciating. It was that there was this moment where Wes is just sitting there staring at him, like he's waiting for him to talk. But I think that actually played into the whole story arc of Wes trying to figure out what was going on with his life. And you find out his mom's gone. Is he going to stay here without his mom and stuff like that? And so I think it picked up definitely as it went on. But I am super, super happy that there are as many people here that love Pulaski or like her, because I love this character so much.
Ooh,
and I don't think I have ever been in a group that has, I don't think I've ever spoken to many people in real life that haven't immediately fought me about how much they hate her because she's mean to Data. My question to the people that hate Pulaski is, if she was mean to Worf or mean to Riker, would it have been just funny? Or is it because Data is such a sympathetic character that a lot of people really relate to? And when she's
he's an innocent in a sense, compared to
so it would be
like picking on a puppy,
right?
That's true. Don't we have Loxana Troy calling Worf Woof or something like that?
And it was hilarious. Woof.
And we don't hate her for it. There's something there, maybe.
But I love Pulaski, and she should have more empathy, because I think Pulaski might not be as easy of a name to say as Data is. So I know I was misspelling it in my notes 100 times over again. My phone knew how to spell Pulaski better than I did. So there's that algorithm, man. Chasing us down.
If you look up the word Data, I realize Data is his name, but in science, both are correct. Data is correct, and it drives me nuts because I was trained to use Data, but both are correct.
So I have a question for everybody, and it's just a general one. This is not the end of Dr. Pulaski. We'll be seeing more of her.
1 or 2 more episodes, right, guys? Jason was like, but this is great, Cirroc, because it's now your turn to tell everybody your final thoughts. I was so proud of myself last week. I came up with a really cool, fun name for this final segment, and I didn't write it down, and I don't remember it.
There it is.
I've been racking my brain for 30 minutes trying to remember what it was. But I do want to say on the thought of Pulaski, I remember when I first watched this show way back in the day when I was a little tyke-ish, and I remember going, who is this? Never mind. And I was not thrilled, but I was just like, come on, man, what is this? So I'm excited to look at these episodes with her in it to see if my opinion of her, my childish opinion of her, changed. And I suspect it will, because I think it mostly just came from the shock of the change and from me being a dumb teenager or whatever it was. But anyway, Cirroc, what do you think? Final thoughts?
I think that it undercut Pulaski's entrance in this episode to have the other Lieutenant Commander Hester Delt in there and introducing that character as well, because I couldn't follow which one of these characters is going to be more relevant going forward. I think they should have left the other storyline with the containment field and all that stuff. We didn't really even need it. Um, um, I also want to say that I learned what a baldric is thanks to you guys here, Carrie. I had to look that up. Um, and I heard you, Ryan, mentioning it earlier, and I kind of just let it fly by my head without really kind of knowing what it is. But the baldric is the belt worn by Worf over the
Cirroc's
shoulder.
new favorite word.
Yeah, baldric. I need some more baldrics in my life. I thought it was interesting they mentioned Prometheus nectar when Guinan was offering a drink to Wesley, because from what I understand, Prometheus is like this Greek character that's essentially the equivalent of Satan in the Bible. So I thought that's an interesting kind of, would you like some of this Satan juice? I thought that was a little weird. I love yes. I love the set of the 10 forward bar that they added. I think that set is going to be coming in handy in the future, and it's so beautiful. Rob Bowman did do a couple of really nice establishing shots inside of that new set to show it off. And you saw he picked different angles to show how big it was and how the furniture was. And he really took his time out to kind of show off that set. Exterior shot coming from the outside into Wesley. All of those shots were really great. And I thought that he did a great job as well, to kind of echo what you said, Jason. Maurice Hurley and the impact that he's had on these first 2 seasons of this show, pretty much immeasurable. I would say he's almost like the Michael Piller of this Next Generation series so far. I just keep seeing his name over and over again. I know that he's passed away, so I never got a chance to meet him that I know of, or at least no one introduced him as the Next Generation producer to me at any point. But he definitely has his fingerprints all over this show. Also want to say the costume design choice for Guinan's hats and her wardrobe was just spectacular. And those things are just so recognizable that, you know, I can go to any convention right now, and as soon as somebody has that outfit on, it's like, oh, I know that is, right? It's just iconic. And I think that whoever designed these outfits, you know, just really reached far into the future and brought us something so original and so beautiful. And it's so elegantly worn by Whoopi Goldberg as well. She just rocks it with this kind of, you know, grace that you would see, like, you know, one of the Bajoran prophets rocking one of their, you know, religious garb. She almost wears it with that kind of religious authority. And yeah, and then of course, you know, next time I have a kid, I hope to be looking on at the childbirth as lovingly as Riker was in that moment, deep in the hallway from far away, staring.
Yeah, a whole other room full of people.
It's unnerving.
So appropriate for a child birth session, you know. So no, we'll get into a lot of that in the second half of this, but yeah, I wanted a little bit more for the series premiere, the season premiere for season 2. I think it could have had a little bit more, and introducing 2 new characters was a lot for me, just like out of nowhere. Like, okay, whoa, who's who? Where's what? Where's your mom? So you know, they're setting the precedence. I did like the opening shot though, when they had the shuttle bay and the runabout kind of moving out of there. I thought that was really cool, and it got me really excited from the beginning. So I thought, oh, this is going to be really good. And unfortunately, it wasn't as good as I thought it would be, but it started out pretty good.
Sorry, I'm just making funny jokes in our Zoom chat right now. Well, that's it for us. So great stuff.
Oh, and
everybody.
the puppies. Nobody brought up the puppies.
So
I mean,
cute.
that's why I got a higher rating to me, because of the puppies. It's
Wow.
save. It was a saving grace for this episode.
Support the puppies. Always support
the puppies.
Don't act
Yeah.
like kids are animals, right?
Right.
Yeah, and Picard doesn't like puppies either. Like, what's wrong with this guy?
Come on. Yeah.
Everybody
That's
likes puppies.
not liking kids, but not liking puppies.
They were nice puppies.
They're
Yeah,
they
so
were.
cute puppies.
Well, we'd like to give a very special thanks to Melissa, Faith, Sue, Jason, Eve, Allison, Nikki T, Mai, Carrie, Chris. I was going to say it's like Chris McGee and Nikki T. Almost sounds like a fun thing. Matt and Goldu Scott, thank you all very much for joining us. For myself, Cirroc Lofton, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, and the puppies, thank you all for joining us. And we will see you next time on The Seventh Rule.